Will there be apostles of the second coming of Christ? It's a question that kind of occurred to me as I've been reflecting on the fact that myself I have become a Christian at the very same time that Christianity is apparently dying as a whole. How is it that someone like myself, who is very philosophically oriented, appreciates rationality and science, at this time, when all of the machinations of the disintegration of the church are more manifest than ever, how is it at this time that I can honestly with myself say that it's my intention to follow the life of Christ and remember my Orthodox faith more than ever? How is this happening now? How does one explain this to others? Is it something that needs to be explained to others? Is it something that can be explained to others? I guess the intention to try to explain it is this kind of burning desire to help others see what I see as the truth. Of course, I can and am deluded in many different ways, right? So how could you say that? I don't think you can talk someone into the truth of Christ. I don't think you can convert them through rational argument or even through, torture or coercion. The path to conversion is a mystery, and in its essence must stay a mystery. So what do you do when you see so many of those around you that you love deeply, being tossed to and fro from the apparent disintegration of the world in front of us? How do you talk them into that truth is a person and that truth is Christ? Again, I think that might be the wrong question, but it might not be the wrong question. And I think that is something that is explicitly or implicitly being worked out through someone like Jonathan Pageau and his The Symbolic World YouTube channel and his artwork and his icon carvings. I think this question is being worked out with someone like Jordan Peterson and his struggles and his notoriety and his downfall in the 2020s with his addiction, and the influence he's having on especially young men, driving them towards the church when he himself is not an explicit Christian. I don't know if he shouted out or he declared that he was a Christian all of a sudden, that would make that would be the right thing in terms of this process. But no, who knows what the right thing is in these tumultuous times. It's hard to be a Christian. It's the hardest thing one can do, and I fail at it tremendously daily. But something in me it keeps going. I have, at its essence, to me, that is what faith is. Faith is not a superstitious belief in an unreality. It is a fervent realization that there is the truth, and it is realizable. It is open to human beings. And I think through human beings, it is open to the world. And I think this truth comes in many forms. And a distinction that I love, that I've heard, that has stuck with me about the truth in terms of orthodoxy, is that orthodoxy is the fullness of the truth. It is not the only truth. It is not the truth. Everything else, whether it's science or other religions, be damned. Truth is truth. The beauty and goodness take on a fractal quality. They have a fractal quality towards them. So the more that we encounter the truth of Christ, the more we can discern the truth of things in our life, whether that's the relationships that we have, or observing the patterns in reality, whether it's something as worldly as watching what's happening in the news or in politics, or in society or in culture, whatever it may be. If one could realize that there are relative truths, because there is the truth, and orthodoxy is the fullness of the truth, that does not negate the fact that there are relative truths, and truths are relative to other truths. Same goes with the good and the beautiful, I'd say. I guess I don't know exactly what I'm trying to communicate here. I've been having a tough go of it lately, and I'm not really sure why. It's been kind of emotional upswings and downswings as I continuously try to, purify my heart. And it's difficult. And it takes patience. Patience is an understatement, but that's the appropriate word. It's a long process. And there's a test of faith that is necessary. That is the purification process in itself, is this test of faith. And it's just difficult. But when all the superficial, trappings of the modern world are disintegrating in front of us, it's almost comforting that there is this extremely challenging encounter to contend with, which is with the truth of Christ. And there are many snares. Sin is constantly crouching in the corner and constantly pounces. The serpent is the most subtle of beasts, subtlest of the animals, because in terms subtlety is important here. Because it's a challenge not to get caught up in the snares of everyday life and lust and anger, or whatever it may be. But there is an overall trajectory to the world. And even in the time of apocalypse and the time of revealing and the time of the previous comforts that we enjoyed are seem to be falling away from us. And it's at this time that the truth is revealed more and more, it seems. And this makes sense when we think of the martyrs and the saints of the church. In times of great turbulence and turmoil, it very much seems like that is when the truth shines through, the edifice and the cracks of the rational world the most. What is one to make of the martyrs and the saints of the Orthodox Church, of the church itself, who have gone through extremely challenging and torturous encounters with the world in professing their faith in Christ? Is one to think that these were delusional people that were caught up in some sort of cultic, some sort of cult or some sort of phantasmagoric illusion in the face of the trouble in the world? Because that is very real, that this happens when people are faced with death or destruction or discomfort. It's very easy to get caught up in delusions of grandeur. It's very easy to be taken up into thrusts of ideologies. And it's important to reflect on oneself if one is in this mode of being caught up in an ideology. And you can never really know from a rational perspective. It's easy to point to a cult and observe that, that person is in a cult. But it's almost impossible to know if you are in a cult yourself. Like, what is a cult anyways? The root word of culture is cult. Culture is what human beings do, in a sense. Right? Just as of our individual cells create our identity, right? The cells of my body create James, right? The organization of humans in a state or a nation create a culture. Culture is a manifestation of the organization, cooperation, and contention of human activity. This is always geared in a certain direction. And it's easier to discern the direction after a certain event that destroys kind of the illusion or dislodges one from one's previous perspective. Only then the perspective kind of becomes apparent. And one can kind of see, kind of reflect on what they've been doing, where they've been. I've seen that happen many times in my life. And in many ways, when one is in the throes of an ideology or a concept that has taken hold of them, they fervently believe that they are in the truth. And in some sense they are. And in some sense, this is a type of truth. Reflecting on the postmodern idea of lived experience being someone's truth. When you ask someone, what is the truth? Someone has, my lived experience is my truth. That is not wrong in a real worldly sense. However, it's not the fullness of the truth. And it's a fraught territory to try to navigate. But I don't know. I'm going to keep making, these videos and keep sharing what comes across, my awareness that interests me. And I don't really know why. I'm blessed to have a kind of vocation, a job that I love, where I don't have to earn an income from these videos that I make or my online presence. And thank God, I don't know if anybody else in terms of a content creator has noticed that there's an algorithm change or shift that happened about 3 weeks ago, where from my perspective, my channel went from kind of growing at a pretty steady pace to almost being cut off immediately, where I went from gaining 10 to 15 subscribers per day, rarely if ever losing subscribers, to it being completely cut off. And now I will lose chunks of subscribers every other day. And it's strange, and I could see how unnerving that would be if I was doing this for a living and was trying to feed my family from this work. So this technology is it's a very precarious situation, and I think it eventually will go away. So I guess ultimately I'm grateful and blessed that people engage and like what I present, and that comes with its own trappings as well. But I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep making videos, and there will be times where my creativity or just my energy is gone, and sometimes that happens for days or weeks at a time, and it's not really clear why. So that's why I've probably taken more time off in the last couple weeks than I have since I started making these videos a couple years ago. And it's not really clear to me why or how that happened or what the pathway forward is. But I try to stay appreciative and grateful as best I can in these times. So appreciate everybody that watches and shares my videos and gets something from them. It's really a blessing, and it's really something that I am grateful for. And hear the nice comments and emails that I get. I'm very grateful for that. And I hope it doesn't bring me to inflation or inflate my ego, essentially, because that's absolutely part of it. And it's always the case that is there. But I try to stay grounded, in my family, and in my ascetic work, in my attempts to be a Christian. It's the hardest thing I've done in my life is to be a Christian. So I understand if people don't want to gaze in that direction. But anyways, thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys next time. God bless.